Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2026 Cognizant Classic Initial Research Show. Hope you had a fantastic Genesis Invitational. You wagered all of the Jacob Bridgman, played all of the Jacob Bridgman, played Rory, who I stayed away from. Clearly, that was not a wise decision on my part. Stayed away from Victor Hovland, who I did play. Again, not a wise decision on my part. My week was saved only by the fact that I played a lot of Kurt Kitayama, who was very, very unique. So it wasn't a disaster of a week. Pretty close to break even, slightly losing. But overall, I will take that considering these limited field events are not my specialty. And then we turn our attention back to full field events and the start of the Florida swing for the Cognizant Classic as we quickly count down the weeks to the Masters. So, starting to be exciting times on the PGA Tour. Would love to hear how your all's weekend went, and then everything Cognizant Classic. So, let's get into it, shall we? All statistics provided tonight and moving forward are from both the Rabbit Hole and Fantasy National. Slowly migrating over to the Rabbit Hole. All of the available data that they have. It has everything you need at your fingertips. It really does. I've really enjoyed digging into the Rabbit Hole, learning everything that it has, building models in there, has its own lineup optimizer for you. So go check out the Rabbit Hole. You won't regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where tomorrow I will resume posting some research regarding some tournament info, patterns of previous winners, players in the field who fit those patterns. Didn't do anything for Pebble Beach or for the Genesis just due to the fact that it was a limited field. And with the Genesis, only really went to 2024 due to the new formatting of the tournament with only 72 players on 120. But anyway, the research will return tomorrow over on social media. So if you want to see that research, go give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contest I play. That comes out every Wednesday after the DFS Tactics show. So if you want to see the players I've wagered with my own money and the players I'm using most often in my lineups, give me a follow over at X. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle's in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. Can't recommend it enough. Comes out every Sunday. Gives you a great start to your week in terms of preparation. And by subscribing to his article, you're going to get his deluxe version, which comes out every Wednesday, has projected ownerships, his top plays, and all of that. Again, would not recommend it if I did not believe in it. It's been great working with Gabe. He is leading the picks challenge after all, so I've got some points to make up there. So make sure you're following Gabe over on social media. Show him some support as well. And then lastly, for this intro, we're live. Chat's open. Want to hear from you all. Again, how was your Genesis? Would love to hear be able to shout out members of the community who had success. And then moving forward, what do you think of Cognizant? What do you know of PGA National? Who is your favorite in the field early on this week? All of that. So any of your thoughts and opinions put in the chat. We'll be more than happy to discuss those. And if you're not able to catch a show live, put your thoughts and opinions into the comments. I'll always get to those as well. So let's get into it. Let's do our initial research for the 2026 Cognizant Classic. And we're going to start, as we always do, on a Sunday evening over at the GCSAA Tournament Fact Sheet. Good evening, John, and good evening, Echoes. Thanks for jumping in chat. Very much appreciated. Won quite a few tickets this week. Well, very well done. Like I said in the intro, it wasn't a disaster of a week for me. I did not hit any outrights. Having said that, I had a very small betting card. Considering the waste management and Pebble, I went pretty heavy, by my standards. So I kind of backed off on the betting card in that regard, but didn't hit any, as Sammy Valimaki and Nico were nowhere close to a top 10. And as high as I was on Kurt Kitayama, wasn't going to bet him to win outright. So just nowhere near on outrights. DFS was and I'll say very, very slightly, losing proposition. Kurt Kitayama saved me a ton there. Didn't play any Rory. I played a little bit of Bridgman. I can't say a lot. I did play my fair share of Bridgman, probably about 25 to 30% of my lineups. So, again, wasn't a disaster, just the slightest losing. I probably recurred 95% of the money that I put in DFS. So, considering the limited field, limited cut events are not my specialty, I will take that all day long. And then we're going to try and get back to some profit this week as we start the Florida swing down in Palm Beach Gardens. But glad to hear that you had success, John. You must have played quite a bit of Bridgman. My guess is you were heading lineups up with Rory. Tommy played pretty well, T7, so I can't be too upset with that. Glad to hear you had success. Echoes, Pinge, and Stevens got you paid. Pinge looked very good for the first 2 days. Fell off yesterday, and I'm going to be honest, I really didn't see much of what he did today. I know Stevens finished inside the top 20, so that was a very good, solid suggestion by you, Echoes. I know you mentioned him last Wednesday night as somebody you were going to in the 6K, so I'm glad that paid off for you as well. And then Turkey. Thought we had it with Victor. Lost shots in weird spots. Victor just, I mean, he was okay on Friday, I think. And then came back down to earth. Or maybe it was Saturday. Because I know he made the cut on the number. Maybe it was Saturday that he was playing well. And then gave a couple of back at the end. He was never really in the tournament. Just not a good showing in regards to, you know, my top plays. Especially my betting card, but those weeks happen, and you know, fortunately, I had enough Kitayama, I had enough Bridgman, had enough Tommy to make up for the fact that I didn't play any Pot Guider, any Rory, any Adam Scott. So little good, more bad, and we're gonna try and turn around this week. Thanks for jumping into chat, Turkey, much appreciated. Why were you so high on Victor? I think it was a combination of things. He had played pretty darn well at the Genesis at Riviera in years past, even though I was only looking at 1 year. He had played pretty well there. He was the number one player from 150 to 200, which is where the majority of approach shots come from. Because honestly, he ranked outside the top 20 in my rankings Wednesday night. You know, by the time I did the mixed condition model and factored in everything, it was a gut feeling. It was just a gut feeling. And it didn't pay off. Simple as that. Considering I wasn't going to play any Rory, my non-Scotty lineups needed somebody in the 9s to kind of gravitate towards. I wasn't terribly confident in Hideki, especially at his ownership. I did like Cantley. I played a little bit of Cantley, played a little bit of Morikawa, but they were getting some ownership as well. I just thought Victor would play better than he did, John. Simple as that. And he didn't. So that's what I got for you. We now turn the page forward, and we're going to start the Florida swing with 4 weeks in the Sunshine State, starting in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, at PGA National, the champion course. PGA National technically has, I think, 4 or 5 courses on property, aptly named, or, you know, aptly using the champion course for the Cognizant Classic, which used to be the Honda Classic. On to the next week. If we don't finish first, we play for the next week. I'll probably cover it more so Wednesday night, but the chat lineup didn't do all that well either in the birdie. So, but when we have Victor, you have Cantley, who, you know, didn't crack top 30, and we played Jason Day in that lineup, who missed the cut. It wasn't going to be a good week. Kurt was the only saving grace in that lineup. But yeah, coming to the new week, PGA National is originally a Tom Fazio design back in 1981. Jack Nicklaus has redesigned and renovated this a couple of times, most recently in 2018, which was the redo of the greens, I believe. Maybe it was 2014. PGA National is a fairly short par 71. Do note that this has not always been a par 71. This has only been the past couple of years that PGA National has been a par 71. It used to be a pretty difficult par 70. They have converted the par 5 10th. Whoops, I'm sorry, wrong thing I wanted to look at. The par 5 10th used to be a very long par 4, about 490. They did add a tee box, which added length, but they decided to convert it to a par 5, which has made scoring quite a bit easier here at PGA National. So, depending on how far back you go in your research this week, do understand when looking at scoring purposes, you'll see winning scores around -10, -11. Sometimes it has stayed in the single digits because it used to be a par 70. And the par 71 has really opened up scoring the past couple of years. So I just want to make that clear to you as the viewer. This is a traditional par 71 now, measuring just over 7,200 yards at 7,223, 4 par 3s, and the aforementioned 3 par 5s. We are on Tiff Eagle Bermuda, and Tiff Eagle is pretty common on the PGA Tour. Getting my notes here, Tiff Eagle Bermuda specifically is seen at Bay Hill, where we'll be next week for the Arnold Palmer. Kapalua, although we didn't see Kapalua this year due to the wildfire or the fires out in Hawaii, but Kapalua has Tiff Eagle Bermuda. Of course, PGA National, where we are this week, and then 2 fall events have Tiff Eagle Bermuda. Port Royal, which is the Bermuda Championship, and Sea Island, the host of RSM. So several courses and several tournaments have specifically Tiff Eagle Bermuda. So it will be interesting to see if we want to look at specifically Tiff Eagle Bermuda or if we just want to look at Bermuda in general. Fairways and rough are now overseeded, and they didn't used to be overseeded. Overseeded grass is easier to play out of. You get better lies out of overseeded grass, which was another reason why scoring was always dampened, I guess is the best way to say here, because the fairways used to be pretty tough, and the rough was very difficult to play out of. But they have started to overseed them the past couple of years as well, which means that it is easier to play out of. The rough is still kept fairly long at 3 inches. I believe the rabbit hole is going to list that as average. It is average to long, depending on the official estimates or official numbers that they get. But generally speaking, 3.5 to 4 inches is long, 3 inches is average. So average length rough and not as difficult to play out of. PGA National, these greens, being Tiff Eagle Bermuda, are also pretty large at 7,000 square feet. Having said that, they don't play to that size. They are, generally speaking, longer and narrower as opposed to a more circular type green. These are more oval or cylindrical, I think is the word. Longer and narrower greens here at PGA National. They're protected by several bunkers, lots of water in play, as you would expect for Florida courses. 15 holes with water in play. Average fairway width is 28 yards. It's a little bit deceiving as trees do come into play on a lot of these holes. There are a lot of forced layups off tees, a lot of severe dog legs around PGA National. It can start to feel a little claustrophobic if a player is very wayward with their driver or even their 3-woods. A few bunkers, but again, mostly protecting greens, maybe a few fairway bunkers. Probably the most famous part of this course is the Bear Trap, named aptly from Jack Nicklaus. 16, is it 15, 16, 17, or is it 16, 17, 18? I gotta double check. Yeah, 15, 16, 17, the 2 par 3s, and a very, very difficult par 4 as well. So that is the most probably famous part of this course. Couple of notes. The second hole has been lengthened by some 20 yards, and the 18th has been some 30 yards has been added to the hole. So that is factored up here into the 72-23. This used to be under 7,200 yards, but they have lengthened the course a little bit. The fairways were overseeded for the first time last year, which led to excellent scoring, as we'll talk about throughout the week. In previous years, only the rough was overseeded. All underlying turf is Bermuda. Fairways were narrowed in 2024, but have since been kind of expanded a little bit in that regard. I know it doesn't say that there, but it has been expanded a little bit. And as you see here, hole 6 normally plays a par 5 for members, but it's a par 4 for the tournament. There's a look at the champion course at PGA National for this week's Cognizant Classic. Again, the highlights here: Tom Fazio design with Jack Nicklaus redesigns and renovations. We are looking at a short, traditional par 71, 4 par 3s, 3 par 5s. The 3 par 5s are easily the most gettable holes on the course. We are looking at large Tiff Eagle Bermuda greens. Sorry, it is getting slightly cut off. There you go. Large, 7,000 square feet, Tiff Eagle Bermuda greens. Fairways are overseeded, which helps play a little bit. Not as difficult to play out of for the professionals. And 15 holes with water in play. So there's a look at the GCSA tournament fact sheet. We're going to go over to Bet Spurts and the rabbit hole. And as usual, being the start of the Florida swing, normally coming off these big events like Genesis, like Pebble Beach, especially in the past 2 years with the rework of the schedule. But even so, the Honda, now the Cognizant Classic, always did struggle to draw in the biggest names. And you're going to see that here as well. I'll expand the time frame even for all of 2025. Your top, big name players: Ben Griffin. Both the Højgaard brothers are here, Nikolai and Rasmus. Ryan Gerard has started to make a name for himself with several high-end finishes to start 2026. Shane Lowry is here this week. Thor Bjornsson, Aaron Rye, Daniel Berger. Today's winner, Jacob Bridgman, is here. But it really kind of falls off after that. It really does. Adam Scott is still in the field as of now. And probably most notably, wherever he is Brooks. Brooks is still listed as in the field as of probably a couple hours ago. But overall, the Cognizant does struggle to gain or to attract bigger name players as they start getting ready for Bay Hill and then their Masters preparations, however they go about it. So a fairly weak field, I think it's safe to say, for the Cognizant Classic. Just very quickly, your top performers so far early in 2026 in the field this week: Ryan Gerard, Nikolai Højgaard, Jacob Bridgman, Joel Damon, Seamus Power, Shane Lowry, Rasmus Højgaard, Hal Tong Lee, Ben Griffin, and David Lipsky are your top 10 performers so far early in 2026 in the field this week. With that, I think that's a decent enough look. Actually, you know what? Let's filter on Tom Fazio just very quickly. Tom Fazio Designs. And we are going to need to expand the time frame. If I go with all of let's go all the way back to 2024. See what courses these include. So Ben Griffin here looked like a lot of rounds. Fazio designed either Spyglass, Yeah, he designed Spyglass. As you can see from this year, the BMW, it's escaping me where that was played last year. Was that Caves Valley? U.S. Open, obviously, it just left me. It wasn't Pinehurst. What was after Pinehurst? Oakmont. Sorry. Oakmont, PGA, Quail Hollow, Cognizant. There's Spyglass again. Seaside, Sea Island, the RSM Classic. The main course there is a Tom Fazio design. Corrales. So there's a look at the Tom Fazio designs in the past couple of years. So decent enough sample size. Your top performers on Tom Fazio designs the past couple of years: Ben Griffin, Thor Bjornsson, Vince Whaley, Nico Echeverria, Billy Horschel, Max McGreevy, Charlie Hoffman, RNP, Rasmus Nergard Peterson, Luke Clanton, and Matty Schmid. Anything else we want to take a look at in terms of like a totality view? Maybe the Florida swing, but we don't necessarily need to do that. So yeah, I think that's fine. I'm assuming the rabbit hole is going to list this as short. It does. It is listed as a Parkland style design. Okay, that's fine. If we wanted to look at short courses, I think that would probably be okay. So if we look at short, I will check very short. This is going to include like Pebble Beach and stuff, which might not be the best fit or best course comparison. But on short and very short courses, your top going back to the beginning of last year, 2025, your top players in the field this week for the Cognizant: Shane Lowry, Ben Griffin, Max McGreevy, S.H. Kim, Jacob Bridgman, Ricky Castillo, Alex Smalley, Patrick Rogers, Andrew Putnam, and Joel Damon. All right. With that, now let's go to the course kind of info, if you will. What does course database? We're going to look at PGA National here in the rabbit hole. Easy scoring conditions, and this is only really factoring in the past couple of years. Again, with that change to the par 5 10th now being a par 5 instead of a par 4, that's only really taken effect the past couple of years. This used to be one of the more difficult courses on tour. So it would have been hard or difficult before that change. Now it's been pretty easy. Winning scores have been, we can check that down here. Joe Highsmith last year at 19 under. Eckroat 2 years ago at 17 under. But before that, you had 14, 10 under, 12, 6 under from Sung Jae. Back when this was the Honda, 9 under from Keith Mitchell. It used to be very, very, very difficult. And it simply has gotten easier over the years. Again, thanks to a couple of those changes, most notably that par 4 becoming a par 5. So easy scoring conditions. This says 13 water danger holes. So the rabbit hole is classifying 2 holes where water really doesn't come into play for professionals. Tomato, tomato. Pretty fast greens, generally speaking, around PGA National. These used to be really darn fast. And Rabbit Hole is listing this as average. 12 would be labeled as fast in Fantasy National. Large greens. This is a less than driver course, much like Pebble Beach, like the Travelers, a little bit of Sedgefield in that regard. You have a lot of dog legs. Harbortown also fits into that quite clearly. Lots of dog legs, lots of forced layups off the tee. Waialae kind of fits in that regard as well. This is a very, very much so less than driver off the tee course. To gain off the tee is difficult around PGA National. Gaining with the irons is average, but scrambling and around the green is pretty darn easy. Very easy there, easy to putt. So yeah, there's a look at some of the scoring metrics or the how the rabbit hole labels the difficulty around PGA National. We take a look at the scorecard. You got a few holes over the past couple of years that have been gettable. Most notably, again, the par 5s. Par 5 third. And look how short they are. 538, 530, 556. These are not long par 5s by PGA Tour standards. Playing a half a shot under par. 2/3 of a shot under par. Almost a half a shot under par. Most every professional is going to take advantage of these par 5s. Where a lot of the separation will come is in the par 3s. Actually, 217, 226, 179, and 175, yet all of them play over par. 900s are a tenth of a shot over par, tenth of a shot over par, 2/10 of a shot, and near a tenth. So all 4 par 3s are among the 6 toughest holes on the golf course. 2, second hardest, fourth hardest, fifth hardest, and sixth hardest. The other hardest holes are longer par 4s. 479, 465. Not really any drivable par 4s. As you see, a tenth of an eagle here on this short par 4 here. The shortest par 4 at 365 has no eagles. This is, again, one of those forced layups, if you will. 427, 421. Lots of shorter par 4s, but you see the eagles. Very few, because they are forced layups. Players are still hitting longer irons into them. We take a look at some of the statistics around PGA National. We saw that it was difficult to gain off the tee there. Off the tee per drive, a lot less than the average PGA Tour event. Distance is a little bit lower, although this number is coming up. If we go to Fantasy National and take a look, driving distance here at 282, it used to be a lot shorter. So this is for the 2 years that it has changed. If we take a look at like old PGA National, it's going to be a lot shorter. A lot shorter. Have PGA National or Fantasy National bring this up. This is from the time before it, or while it was a par 70. Come on, load. It's not doing it. But you see the cut line was always pretty tough. There we go. See how much lower the distance was when it was a par 70? Again, just lots of forced layups. So in the changes, and let me bring this back to this year's before I forget. In the 2 years that the courses underwent some changes, the distance has come up a little bit. So be wary of that. We're not fully looking at, no drivers around here, where some players didn't even bring driver to the course in years past here. Accuracy, slightly higher. Fairway penalty, not a whole lot. Or missed fairway penalty, not a whole lot. Not a whole lot of rough penalty. Again, because of the overseed, it's starting to play a little bit easier. Approach, easier here, generally speaking, except when outside 150 yards. But greens, higher here. Again, they're larger than the average tour event or average tour green, so that makes a little bit of sense. Even hitting greens from the rough is easier here. So average approach distance 167. We'll keep that in mind. Again, approach, a lot of green. Around the green type stuff, very easy. Scrambling generally, or at least around the green play, around PGA National, pretty easy, with the exception of all the water in play. So as long as players aren't finding water, they can scramble pretty successfully around here. We look at scoring. Again, this is mostly from the past 2 years. Birdie or better, a little bit higher. Birdie to bogey ratio higher. Again, a lot of this is in the par threes, where the par threes play tougher than the average course par threes, and the par fives are real easy. Taking a look at approach ranges, quite a few from 175 to 200. Again, as expected, these are all your forced layups. 150 to 175 is a little bit higher as well. You got a few from 225 to 250 just because of attacking the par fives. But we're kind of looking at the same 150 to 200, but I'm more interested in the 175 to 200, considering the majority of approach shots come from that range. If we quickly run over to Fantasy National, we covered the scorecard in the rabbit hole, so I don't want to overdo it there. Let's just kind of cover some things from a graphical viewpoint. Strokes gained by shot type. This is a ball striking course, particularly with the irons. I know the putter is leading the past couple of years over the approach, but you see off the tee is heavily outweighing the around the green. Off the tee, while it's not easy to gain here, off the tee is going to be much more important than around the green, because around the green is pretty darn easy around here. But as you would expect, if you're in the top 10, the top 5, and especially your winners, you're making a lot of putts, and you're scoring that way. But look at your winners. Your winners are really, really ball striking it well. So we definitely want to emphasize that early on this week until something tells us not to. Strokes gained by hole by par. Professionals are taking advantage of the par fives. No surprise there. But as we climb up, well, maybe not necessarily the par fives, or top fives, but look at your winners. Your winners are playing these par threes pretty well, and that's what it's going to take. So we're going to have some par three performance around here. Taking a look at that this week. Hole composition: 2 mid-length par threes, 1 long and 1 very long par three. 3 short par fours, not drivable, but short, and then 4 each from 400 to 500, and then your 3 par fives are all very short. Very short. Cut line the past couple of years has been really easy. -4 cut last year. That is very easy. That is like Sony Open, not quite, TPC Craig Ranch easy, but -4 is very, very easy. -1 the first year of all of the changes. Whereas if we quickly go to when it was a par 70, it was difficult. It was very difficult. I mean, we had cuts at +7, +6, generally hovered in the +2 to +4 range. The course was very difficult in years past. It has been changed up a little bit to make it a little bit easier. Accuracy is a little bit easier here than it used to be, but still less than the average tour event. Greens hit higher. Scrambling much easier than the average tour event here. Distance is a little bit lower, although it is coming up. Proximity is a little bit higher. Just wanted to show you that, particularly the strokes gained by shot type for PGA National. We'll go back to the rabbit hole and take a look at the players in the field this week. Take a quick look into some of the statistics for an early look into this week. We'll start with let's go to off the tee. Let's do your top off the tee players on less than driver courses. Your top off the tee performers on courses that are labeled less than driver. And again, I wish I had that list memorized. I simply don't. I know Pebble Beach is a part of this. I would have to assume like Harbor Town is probably a part of this. I'll check just very quickly. Harbor Town, less than driver. So those types of courses. In fact, I just want to double check one other one. Waialae. Am I right with that? No, it's mixed. What's Sawgrass? Sawgrass has some. Yep. Okay, so Sawgrass is technically listed as a less than driver course. So those kinds of courses, just be aware of those. Pebble Beach, Harbor Town, TBC Sawgrass. These courses with a lot of forced layups. Your top off the tee players on those courses: Rico Hoey, Takumi Kanaya, Doug Gim, Davis Thompson, Christopher Raytan, Max McGreevy, Aaron Rai, Joel Damon, John Perry, and Rasmus Nergard Peterson are in P. Anything else here we want to take a look at? Yeah, let's do when gaining off the tee is difficult and very difficult. When it's very difficult to gain strokes off the tee, your top off the tee performers: Jesper Svensson, Isaiah Salinda, Keith Mitchell, Rico Hoey, Davis Thompson, Max McGreevy, Garrick Higo, Aaron Rai, Christopher Raytan, and William Mao. We're going to clear those filters. We're going to bring this to 2026. And we're going to go to approach. Your top approach players in the field this week. Again, the Genesis is not included. It just wrapped up a couple hours ago, but just showing you that it's not in here. So this might change a little bit, especially with Bridgman. But your top approach players in the field this week at the Cognizant in 2026: Austin Smotherman, Johnny Kiefer, Ryan Gerard, Sam Ryder. Be aware of Sam Ryder. Sam Ryder has been very good here. Jacob Bridgman, Chris Kirk, former winner here, David Ford, Zay Ching, Marty Doe, David Lipsky, Nikolai Højgaard are your top 10 in terms of approach early on in 2026 in the field this week. I'm going to skip around the green. It's not really all that important, at least early on this week. I don't find it to be very compelling to consider this week. So instead, we'll do this a couple of different ways. Let's do putting on Bermuda. It's up here. Sorry, I'm still trying to get used to a lot of the rabbit hole. So on Bermuda greens, this is going to be a lot of data, but it is what it is. Going back to the beginning of last year, your top putters on just Bermuda, different types of Bermuda, but all of Bermuda. In the field this week: Ben Griffin, Rasmus Højgaard, Matty Schmid, Nico Echeverria, Sam Ryder, Lee Hodges, Davis Riley, Sammy Valimaki, Kevin Roy, and Christian Bezuidenhout. If we take a look at specific courses that have Tiff Eagle Bermuda, we're looking at Bay Hill. We are looking at the Plantation course. So PGA National, Plantation. We're looking at Sea Island, Seaside, and Port Royal. Almost passed it. So we're looking at those 5 courses. These are the 5 courses that are listed as having Tiff Eagle Bermuda per the GCSAA. Going back to the beginning of 2024, just to give enough rounds to make it statistically significant, your top putters on Tiff Eagle Bermuda: Sam Ryder, Nico Echeverria, Eric Van Rooyen, Ben Griffin, Jacob Bridgman, Chris Ventura, Christo Lamprecht, Vince Whaley, Seabez, Christian Bezuidenhout, and Danny Walker. All right. Let's cover par 3s just very quickly, since we've put quite a bit of emphasis in it already this evening. Early on in 2026, your top performers on par 3s: Blades Brown, Matt Kuchar, Patrick Fishburne, Stephen Yeager, Shane Lowry, Patrick Rogers, Seamus Power, Rasmus Højgaard, David Ford, Nikolai Højgaard, David Lipsky, and Adam Scott are your top 12 in par 3 performance. All right, last thing we're going to cover tonight in the initial research show. Let's see how players have performed around PGA National. This will go back 5 years. I am more interested in the past 2 years, but I will include all 5 years probably in my like course history. I'm still thinking about it, considering how much the scoring and stuff changed from being a par 70, par 71. So put it in chat or put it in the comments. What do you think? Do you think the change from making a par 70 to par 71 makes enough of a difference to just look at the last 2 years, or should we look at the last 5? Interesting thought experiment there. Your strokes gained total leader, at least in the past 5 years, is Shane Lowry. Runner-up 4 years ago, a couple more top 5s, top 15, and a middling T36. So, I mean, he's played very, very well around PGA National. Chris Kirk has also played very well here. He's 5 for 5 the past 5 years around PGA National, including the win 3 years ago. Another top 10, another top 25. He's been pretty good. As mentioned, Sam Ryder has been very good around here. A couple of top 10s, a little bit more historical, but a couple top 10s, top 25. So he's 4 for 4. Anytime you're on Bermuda greens, you got to think about Billy Horschel. Billy Horschel, 4 for 4 here. Top 10, top 20. Keith Mitchell, former winner on this golf course back in 2019, so it's not listed here, but he did win the Honda in 2019. Ryan Gerard only a couple times, but he has a top 5 and a top 25. Jacob Bridgman has been very good here. Runner-up and a top 30. Some other notables. Bo Hostler's been fairly decent around here, 3 for 4. Garrick Higgo's 3 for 3. Seabez is 3 for 4. Top 25, a couple of middlings. Doug Gim, especially in the last 2 years, Doug Gim has been very good. 2 top 20s. Chan Kim, 2 for 2 in the last 2 years. Lee Hodges has been okay. Top 10, top 15, miscut. So here's a look at some of the players who have been pretty darn good here the last 5 years. The other end of the spectrum, players who have not been good the last 5 years around PGA National. Camilo Villegas, he is 2 for 5 with a top 10, but 3 pretty bad miscuts otherwise. Brendan Todd, 1 for 3. Toasty's not been good here. Harry Higgs is only 1 for 4. Let's see, some others here. Patton Gazire, 0 for 3. Peter Malnati, a top 10 and miscuts everywhere else. Snedeker, 0 for 2. S.H. Kim is 2 for 2, but negative quite a bit in strokes gained. Kuchar, only 1 for 3. Chad Ramey, 1 for 4. Henrik Norlander, 0 for 3. Michael Kim did top 10 here last year, but was very poor before that. Justin Lauer, 1 for 3. Dylan Wu, some mixed success. Top 10, top 30, and 2 miscuts. McGreevy, top 5 last year, but then 2 miscuts. So there's a look at some of the players who have and have not played well around PGA National the past couple of years. I'll bring us back to the rabbit hole. Let's just go strokes gained to make it easy. That's going to do it for the initial research show this evening. Thanks to John, Echoes, and Turkey for jumping into chat. And John and Echoes, sounds like you all had a positive week at the Genesis. So congratulations on your success, however much it was. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. I love what I do, taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician and data analyst view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. Reminder, I will have some research out tomorrow over on X regarding previous champions of the Honda/Cognizant Classic. So be on the lookout for that tomorrow over on social media. Thanks again for all the support, for all the wagers you made this past week for the Genesis, for all the DFS contests you played this past week for the Genesis. And until I see you tomorrow night for the Data Dive Show, may all your bets be profitable.